Hi everyone, I'm Adam Brady of Straight Class Warrior JKD and RevisedReality.com. Welcome back to Kettlebell Basics. This is the first exercise we're going to be working on, which is the kettlebell swing. And of all the kettlebell exercises, the kettlebell swing is probably the most foundational and the most important because it really gives you the foundation to build upon everything else that you do with kettlebells. What you're doing with your hips, how you're moving your body, it all comes and builds upon the kettlebell swing. So we're going to start here and continue with our progression into different exercises. But you'll notice that once we start to get into those other exercises, you're going to say, oh, I get this from the swing. Oh, this is back to the swing. So these movements carry forward. So the most important distinction I can make for you in the very beginning is the recognition that the swing is not a squat. And the squat is not a swing. They are two different things. The squat will be the next exercise, but the swing is very different. The swing is a hip hinge. That's really, really important to understand. So the hips, right here, if you take your hands, make little karate chops right in your hip bone, right in that spot, this is where all the movement happens in the kettlebell swing and pretty much everything else we do with the kettlebells. It's this hinging movement right here. Notice there's no rounding of my back. I'm not rounding like this. I am keeping my back level as I hinge from my hips. It's like sticking your butt out on purpose, which feels weird for us, but you'll see the more you do this, the more you get used to this hinging motion, the more this will carry over into everything you do. Like when I go, like the counters in my kitchen or the cabinets down below the counter, whenever I bend down for something now, I've done this for so long that I just automatically hinge. I don't even think about rounding my back and putting my posterior chain in jeopardy. It's all about this hinge. And that's so important to get, because if you don't get this, then what you're going to end up doing is what some people call the squat swing, which looks like this. You're kind of squatting down, going way down, and that's not this movement. It's all in the hips, all in the hip drive. It's a hip snap. This is one of the ballistic movements that we talked about earlier, is just this snappy, crisp motion behind the kettlebell swing, and it all comes from right here. And this is so important to get this movement and understand that it's all driving from the hip snap. Okay, so basically what we're going to do with the kettlebell is we're going to swing it up, and in the movement, the way I've become comfortable with it is to get the swing chest height, not going any higher than your chest, not going up to your face, and not going up overhead. This is the American swing. Some people like to do this with two hands. I would much rather do the snatch and go with one hand, much safer for your lower back. And as you get up to this point with two hands, you have to engage your arms. And you'll see as we start to move through the swing, the arms aren't working as much. I mean, they're engaged, but you're not lifting. There's no lift with your arms to bring the kettlebell up. It's the drive from the hips that carries your arms up with the ride of the kettlebell. Boom! It's what snaps it up. And if you're going to go higher than your head or your face, then you're going to need to engage your arms usually and carry over. And that's where, as you can imagine, boom, this can really put a lot of strain on your lower back if you're not exceptionally careful and understand that form difference. So I don't recommend that. That's not how I like to train. That's not how I was trained. So what you do with your own training, that's your business, but be very careful. If you choose to go higher than this, that's where injuries can happen, in my opinion. So keep it right about this height. So what you'll see me doing, even without the kettlebell, is kind of a snap. Everything engages. Remember, it's full body exercise. So the legs are snapping, the hips, the glutes, the hips, boom, the arms, the chest, the abs, everything tightens up. It's kind of like Colossus in the X-Men who can turn his body into steel. It's like right at that split second, everything boom, gets hard, and then it swings back. So there are two different components to the swing. There's the hike back and then the swing. And the deeper your hike and that hip hinge, the more you're going to be able to drive up. It's like hiking a football back behind you. So if you want, go outside, take your kettlebell with you, line up behind it, and you can just literally, boom, shoot it back behind you and get that feeling, because you want this experience of your arms coming back behind, almost hitting yourself right in your inner thighs there, because you want this nice hinge. You see, my head is looking up, my chest stays up. It's all about that hinge and the drive. Okay, so the posture, the position for your feet is typically about shoulder distance apart. Nice, good, wide base. No shoes, if possible. If not, flat-soled shoes. Toes turn out just a little bit. And when you start, you're about a foot, maybe 2 feet behind your kettlebell, whatever feels best for you, because you're going to want a little bit of a backswing to start. The closer you are to being directly over your kettlebell, the more energy you're going to have to generate from your arms and your shoulders and your upper body to hike it back. But if you're here and you load your hips, all you have to do is boom, and it just goes. So there's not as much effort if you have that little warm-up space. So position about 1.5 feet behind your kettlebell, sink down. I like to bounce a few times, really just to sink my heels down into the mat, into the ground, whatever I'm standing on, so I'm really feeling rooted and based out, nice and strong. From here, I go through 3 steps. I call these out to my students. The first is the hinge. Hinging down, if you place your hands here, then we'll stand up tall, we'll hinge, we'll wrap our arms forward. Wrapping around, let them rest on the kettlebell. Snap is the second one, so hinge, wrap, snap, and then hike. So once we get down to the kettlebell, we snap it. Imagine that you've got a twig, boom, and you're trying to snap it. Because see what this does, this rotates your arms so that it engages your lats. It's not just here. Once you do this, boom, it changes everything and fires up your back to keep that stabilized as you hike the kettlebell back. So stand up tall, hinge, wrap, snap, and now you load your hips. What does that mean? It means you just sink back and allow this to be your anchor, like a boat anchored, and it's just, you can drift back just a little bit, and then when you're ready, you hike it back. And the breathing is an inhale back and then an exhale as you explode up. Everything will tighten, everything locks up, and the kettlebell lifts up from the drive of your hips, carrying the weight up with your arms. So here's what it looks like. Stand up tall, hinge, wrap, snap the handle, load the hips, look forward, 3, 2, 1, hike. Park it safely, set it back down, and bring yourself back up. You know, like I said before, you don't just drop it and walk away. You park it safely, bring yourself back up, and then take some time to breathe and move. And just relax a little bit. Don't stand still. Don't just allow your body to slow itself back down, your heart rate to come back down naturally and easily. So that's the basic mechanics of the movement. You're snapping the hips, driving it up. And you'll notice that at the top of the swing, the kettlebell almost has kind of like a weightlessness to it. You're not trying to power swing it back. Yes, you can do that. In more advanced training, you can get used to, once you've got this form down, then you can start to add a little bit of a punch, swinging it back, and just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But from the beginning, you want to drive it up, and it almost floats for a second, and then it comes back down. Don't need to give it any help coming back down. Just let it float. And they say in advanced kettlebell training, as you go through sets and higher numbers, if you're doing maybe a set of 100 kettlebell swings, the only rest that you get is on this float stage. Everything, whoom, whoom, that's when you get a little bit of a breather, just for a second. But the breathing, you see, very important. Explosive exhalation up, and then inhale, coming back down. And seeing this position here, in many ways it's kind of like a silverback gorilla. You have this nice tall posture, and my back is straight, hike here, and then it comes straight up here. You almost want to think of doing a vertical plank. Like if you do a plank down on the mat or on the ground, you're always looking, trying to keep your spine as neutral and as level as possible. When you come and stand up for the swing, you want to do the same thing. So my recommendation to start out would be using that weight, whatever that is for you, 35 or 20 if you're a lady, to swing maybe sets of 10. Just to get in the groove, grease the groove, start to program this movement. If you've never done kettlebell swings before, this is going to feel weird. Your body's going to want to do that squat, and that's not the right thing to do. So it takes time to practice this to get your body used to the new movement pattern. So do sets of 10, build your way up. 10, take maybe a 30-second, 1-minute breather, move around, come back to it, refocus, mindful attention, and then begin your second set. And continue from there, just to build on this and to make it more of a practice than it is a workout. In the beginning, you're going to need to practice so that you feel comfortable with this movement, so you can get it again and again and again before you even think about raising the weight. You want to get comfortable with the movement first, and then after months or potentially even years, getting really comfortable with it, then you can start to add more weight and go from there. So it depends on how much you train and how much you program this movement into your body for it to become comfortable with. Now, that was the two-handed swing. The kettlebell can be swung with one hand as well. This is a little bit different mechanically, so you have to just pay attention to what you're doing as you get ready for this. So the same position applies. You get your feet, posture, everything rooted, ready to go here. And instead of using two hands, you'll still hinge, you'll wrap one hand, height, grab the bell, sink your hips back. I put my other hand out. This is how I was taught for good balance, just to have this engaged. It doesn't have to be locked super strong, super tight, but you want to keep this out here so it can swing freely as the kettlebell is coming up. Your arm may swing back a little bit, but I like to keep it floating right in this area as this other hand is doing the carrying of the kettlebell. So once again, inhale up, hinge, wrap, grab the kettlebell, sink your hips down, deep breath in, and hike. And then you can switch swing. That switch swing requires a little bit of coordination. Two hands, and then park it. Deep breath or two. Allow your body to settle. Take your time there. Don't just jump right into activity. Move around a little bit. Breathe. Relax. You're going to feel that energy really flowing, and it builds up heat very quickly once you start to engage all these big muscles, because these are some of the biggest muscles in your body. As you're snapping here, everything tightens, core, arms, you're all coming together. And that uses a lot of energy, but it also builds a lot of energy too, so that's a great thing. So some other notes about this one-handed swing. You're going to feel, as you do this more, the tendency for the swing to kind of twist your torso. Because as you're swinging, it's going to come back this way because you don't have both hands here to keep it neutral, facing forward. As this hand comes back over here, you notice how my shoulders want to wrap back this way. You want to bring the kettlebell straight back up. You don't want to try to do something funky and arc it. You want to still keep it straight and not let your shoulder girdle twist too much, because you are going to get hurt if you do that. Be very careful. Here's a switch swing again. Arm comes in, float it out. And two hands, park. Couple nice deep breaths. So that's the kettlebell swing. It is the foundation of everything you do. If you don't do any other kettlebell exercise, just doing that one will build so much strength, so much hip mobility, so much snappy power. Some say it's like the closest you can get to being in a fight without throwing a punch. And it's just a few reps. I did probably, 25, 30 total. And yeah, it's Florida and it's 94 degrees out right now, but it really gets your heart rate going and you sweat a lot. So you'll get used to this higher level of intensity in your training. But the great thing about this and all kettlebell training is that you can get an amazing workout in a very short amount of time because of the intensity going so much higher than a lot of other forms of exercise. You get strength training and cardio all together in one package. So that's a great thing about kettlebell training like this. So that's a kettlebell swing. Try it out. Progressively build your way up. But practice is so important. Getting used to having this hip hinge and working through that. And if you're not clear on that, go back, watch the video again, and really understand how important it is to keep your back straight, hinge from your hips, not squat. That's the next movement. We'll see that in just a minute. But keeping those hips snapping, not coming past neutral, not overextending, but just this whole concept. It just takes some awareness of your body, because if you've never done these movements before, they're going to feel weird, and you need to take time to get used to what that feeling is like. It's proprioception. That's the tendency and the ability to understand where your body is in space as it moves around different objects as you're swinging a kettlebell. So is my back extending too far? Am I flexing forward? Where's my weight? What's my center of gravity? All these things become increasingly clear as you continue to train and practice more. So just play around with it, work your way up, and as we get through all of the exercises, we'll put these together in different programs and different combinations that you can build up additional levels of strength with. But in the beginning, which is where I presume you're at, just take your time, work through this exercise, build this as your foundation, because once you've got the swing, everything else will start to flow into place from there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.